Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone, wherever you are. Let me start by thanking you all again for your continuous support with my podcast channel. It's been greatly appreciated and really happy to be there for the second episode. Today we'll be talking about a very important topic, leadership and customer service. And we will answer the question, does amazing leadership lead to happier clients? To talk about this very important topic, we have the pleasure of having a very good friend of mine, Clayton Drotsky, the people first leader who spent the last 17 years running large, multicultural customer services teams around the world. He gone from sales agent to global ops leader and even started his own leadership mentoring business to help others find their spark. Clayton's big on real talk, big on purpose, and firmly believes that when teams feel valued, they do magical things for customers. He's here to tell us why. We've been already doing some very nice discussion talks, live events a couple of years ago. So really happy to have you here, Clayton. Good morning, and thank you for being here. Clayton, do you want to add anything from that amazing introduction?
No, Pierre, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. You forgot that I'm 6'6" and a real monster on the rugby field. I'm only joking. As you know, I'm 5'10" and definitely not a rugby player, but a big fan. I think that's where our friendship really began. Our common interest in rugby, but also we met through a networking group quite a few years ago where we hit it off in our passion for customer service and leadership. So yeah, thank you for having me, Pierre.
It's a natural thing that our friendship came from rugby because rugby spirit is all about respect, love, passion, etc., etc. So probably this also is reflecting in what we do in our own life, both personal and professional. I have to say, I think you're still taller than me. Even if you're not the size you said, you still have more of the best physique than I do. Me, I'm more like a Dupont.
I'm also younger.
Yeah, definitely. You just have to look by the hair. Anyway, thank you so much again for being here. Pleasure having you. I'm going to ask right away the first question to you. Successful leadership. Why do you think it is having such a great impact, a positive impact on customer satisfaction?
Leadership creates an environment for others to give great customer service, an environment where people feel valued, part of something far bigger than themselves, and encouraged to stand up, speak up, and make great ideas. In sports, we see the most fantastic teams. Most great sports teams have a great coach or leader that got them there. This person was able to bring people into what the plan was. What is our why? What do we want to achieve and why? What's our purpose? Great leaders are able to bring people in so they feel valued, that what they're doing and their contribution matters, because that breeds and encourages accountability and people take ownership. It's the age-old saying, the happiest bees make the tastiest honey. And I think Danny Wham, who you also know, said that often.
That's very true. I like the comparison you made with sport. At the end of the day, the team with the most rock stars players, they're not necessarily the ones who win the most trophies. Sometimes the one who wins the most trophies is the teams who knows how to play with each other. Well, sometimes you need to have someone on top who knows how to lead that team, to coach that team. It comes down to the same when we're talking about customer service. Well-led people will be inspired enough to take care of the customers the same way they're being treated themselves. But there's also another very important point. When I train on customer service, many of the things I cover are very obvious. Actually, you are the one who told me that sentence that I love and I still use today. Customer service is about the obvious that everybody knows but constantly forgets. Why is that? Why then, if everybody knows it, is the things that is not always done? Well, because you need a leader on top, a trainer who will inspire you to switch from having to do it to wanting to do it. A busy day where you have a lot of things to take care of, you're under a lot of pressure. How do you remember to do those things? How do you make them a priority? I think it's through a leader, someone who will be reminding you, inspiring you to do it. I think that's probably the main aspect when it comes to leading a customer service team. I don't know if you agree with that.
As a leader, when there is pressure on people and targets, you create the environment for people to feel supported so they are able to do their work. You need to stay curious, show your support, open your ears and listen. You need to encourage people to talk. If there's lots of pressure, let's talk about that pressure. What is causing the pressure? Are we doing things the same way we've always done it? Is there a different way of doing it? What is the end goal? And working towards the end goal with the processes we are currently following. It's the little things, the basics, your intentions as a leader that create the environment for people to feel trusted, to feel safe, for them to be able to do great things when no one's looking.
Yep.
It's the leader that helps create that environment. Yep. Just to talk about the Champions League that's currently happening. If you look at the teams that are there, PSG got rid of all their big names. Mm-hmm. These guys are playing for something bigger than themselves. Yep. They're playing for the city, the people in the city, yep, for each other. You look at Inter Milan, they don't have big names. They're in the final. They beat some of the biggest names in the world. They're playing as a collective for something bigger. Now, I don't know what's actually happening in those change rooms. I'm just talking from what I can see from the outside. Yep. I see leaders who've created those environments. Yep. For people to want to give their absolute all for the club, mm-hmm, and chase down every ball, empty their tanks, play against the best in the world and beat them. Yep. Now those two teams are in the final. Yep. Because of great coaches, leaders, creating environments for them to express themselves. Yep. Align them to a shared purpose, mm-hmm, and that they are valuable and that what they do is a massive contribution, because every time they go onto the pitch and play well, another child in Paris or Milan thinks, hey, I can do, mm-hmm, that. I can also become that. Mm-hmm. And it's spreading hope. When you have a team, it could be a corporate team, a team in a coffee shop, a restaurant. If that team feels like I'm valued, someone cares about me, someone's looking after my well-being and listening to me when I'm talking and is curious about me, mm-hmm, genuinely interested in my development, I will want to do better. Yeah. I will feel more accountable and take ownership for that role. And I mean, I know we can't always compare business to sport, but just because it's top of mind, I mean, just makes sense, right?
When I mentioned that, I was referring to the Champions League final. Who would have thought one day we will talk about football together? Can you imagine?
I know.
But you said so many true things. And I've seen working environments where you have an unhealthy atmosphere, where you have a blaming culture, where you have politics going on. To get approval from your leaders, to seek that validation, it's not really related to performance. How can you focus on customers when you have those type of environment internally? You know, like you said, you're just going to do the right things when you're being looked at. You're going to try to be validated, to be appreciated by your leaders through unhealthy ways rather than performance, rather than bringing the customer satisfaction to the next level, etc., etc., etc. And sometimes, you know, I sit down in a restaurant, in a coffee shop, because I've been for more than 10 years working in luxury hotels, managing people, and because I've seen sometimes those type of unhealthy environment, toxic environment. I can tell right away when it's like that. And you feel like really the customers is the latest of their priority because they're busy with something else. Maybe those employees, they're good employees, they're good people. But because they don't have a good leader that doesn't value real performance, doesn't value what matters, they will seek that validation, that appreciation from the managers through something else. It's a little bit like children with parents. The problem is then, how do you want them to deliver great customer service? Many companies will say, people first, we value our people first. But the minute there's customer issues, the complaints, then suddenly that value doesn't exist anymore. It's not people first. What happened? Then you're going to have that blaming culture coming in. What happened with that client? Who made the mistake? Etc. And then who do we need to point a finger at? It doesn't work this way. First of all, I think it's about splitting what a mistake is. I don't think if a customer is unhappy with something, it's because of one thing or because of one person. Is very, very often the accumulation of a lot of things. And it's too easy to look at that part of the iceberg, which is the last person we interacted with the customers. Oh, you did that. Oh, you didn't do that. Oh, you said that. Oh, you didn't say that. What about looking at the whole process? What did happen before that situation occurred? What did we not do or didn't do well or should have done for this situation to not happen? What could we have done in terms of support, tools, training, monitoring, empowering, influencing, to make sure the team members have all the abilities in hands in order to handle the situation successfully. It's too easy to point fingers at. Can you imagine if you're an employee and you're under that pressure and you deal with all those complicated situations, and the minute a mistake happens, you pointed fingers at? I mean, it's discouraging to say the least. You will want to put the blame somewhere else. You're going to say, hold on, yes, I made that mistake, but there's also this, that, and that caused me making that mistake. It's unfair to just look at me. So, of course, they're going to bounce the ball back. And that's how I believe great working environment, great leadership, great customer service completely vanishes.
If you get wrapped in the knuckles for a mistake and there's a blame game culture in your team, you're never going to grow. If you take the risk of making a mistake in an environment where people are encouraged to give things a go and chase a lost cause, you encourage creativity and innovation. You encourage people to think about it. When there is a mistake made, 100% correct. As a team, a good leader will, with the team, reflect on where did that happen and where can we do better? What went well? Reflect on what just happened. Many times the customer makes a mistake, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've always said the customer is not always right, but the customer is always the customer.
Yeah.
Sometimes the customer does get things wrong. We need to understand, why did they get it wrong? Where are we not clearly saying what we're supposed to be saying? Because we talk to hundreds of customers about the same thing, we think everybody understands.
Yeah.
But they don't.
Yeah.
For that customer, for their experience, it's the first time they're hearing this. They don't understand your processes. They don't understand how it works. If you haven't been clear in your communication, that customer could make a mistake. So then, even if the customer made a mistake, it's good to reflect on, how did they see it? Put yourself in their shoes. How did they see this process working? How did they get it? How did they understand it incorrectly from what we know? We didn't say it correctly to them. So, yeah, reflection is massive. Even if the team makes a mistake, reflect on why that mistake is happening. And that's why I was saying earlier, if there's lots of pressure on a team and lots of problems to solve, as a leader, the most supportive thing you can do is listen.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to people. If they are saying, Clayton, there's no time for us to take breaks because it's too busy, you need to listen. Why is this the case? What kind of calls are we getting? If every single call we're getting is someone to ask for a confirmation, why can't they get confirmations online themselves?
Yep.
Because that will free up our time. I've been to many coffee shops in London where you walk in, you order from these screens. You just have to go to the counter.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a backlog at the counter, and we don't understand. My wife always says, never underestimate the power of a good sign.
Yeah.
A sign that says, order here, collect here, go here, because we'll follow what we read. Sometimes I think as customer service professionals, we need to understand and reflect a lot. But good leaders will listen when the pressure's on.
And I think that's where expectations management, effective communication right from the start, understanding the customer's perspective and the fact that things that are obvious to us are not necessarily obvious to our customers, objections handling, which, by the way, 70% of what I train about is that. Those are very important. On many instances, it's very basic things that are not done that could make such a difference. It starts with that mindset, like you said. One of the things I love to say is that the question we should ask ourselves is not whether or not the client is right or wrong. What is our part of responsibility in the client being wrong? What did we not say? Or what should we have said at some point? Where did we not set our boundaries successfully? Where did we not communicate effectively on those obvious things to us but not to them? When did we not say no? When did we say to ourselves, let's just not say anything right now. We don't want to upset the clients. But then we didn't realize by not saying anything, we're just making the clients angrier moving forward.
Yeah.
So sometimes expectations management is about deciding when to make the clients not happy so they know the truth, they know how it works, so they are happier later. So it starts with a mindset, it starts with the right approach, it's all through communication, but it's also about understanding, do not overlook the little things. Because on many instances, when you are on the customer's perspective, it's the little things that you miss when it comes to communication, expectations management, etc., etc. Thank you for highlighting that. Obviously, this podcast channel is about making your people happy in order to make your clients happy. What do you think really makes a difference when it comes to making your people happy?
We very quickly as leaders can jump into the bandwagon of being really nice I've been called that many times. Clayton, you're nice. Or we want everyone to be happy. As leaders, we fall into this trap of doing everything ourselves because we feel like if we do everything ourselves, our people will be happy because they're not working too hard. We don't trust our people to do a good job, so we never delegate. Because if someone does a bad job and makes a mistake, we take it very personally and it's a bad reflection on us, when it's absolutely not a bad reflection on us if someone makes a mistake in our teams. But as leaders, we get caught in these traps. So for leaders to make their teams happy is be curious, listen, and be interested in your people.
Yeah.
They know that you listen. They know that you care. They will want to do a good job. So for a leader, create that environment where people feel like they are making massive contributions to the business. As human beings, we have a primal need to belong to something. We need to feel like we belong to something. There's a primal need for us because when we belong to something, we actually perform better. We feel like we're representing something. When we belong to something, we're more understanding. We're more open to suggestions. We're more open to listening. We're more open to giving the other person a turn before we take our turn. As a leader, you want to create that environment. Make sure that you communicate well. Why does this team exist? What do we want to achieve and why? Is everyone understanding where we're going? When you're communicating, you're painting a very clear picture as to why we do things the way we do. If there's a menu change on a coffee shop, make sure everyone understands why the menu change and what the menu change is, so that they buy into it, so that they understand it, so they don't get there one day and go, can I please have the avo and prosciutto sandwich? And they go, we don't have that. People need to understand, so you need to communicate. When you communicate like this, you're connecting everybody to the reasons why we do things the way we do. People feel more part of something. And if they feel valued and what they do matters to the business and it makes a contribution, they will find more joy and satisfaction in what they do, because what they do is meaningful and matters to their colleagues and their customers. They'll find more joy and satisfaction because of that, and then naturally they will excel at it. As a leader, you want to create that environment. You also want to be a good communicator in closing loops. That's something I see leaders very often miss, is closing the loop. For example, if you say, hey guys, this summer we're going to have a company day out, and you never say anything again, because maybe the company day out was cancelled because profits aren't looking that great and we can't handle that expense. You're not closing that loop, leaving people to wonder why. When people are left to wonder without your input, thoughts can run away with them. A simple one that happens very often in a company is someone will have an idea and they will be so excited about their idea. They can't wait to share their idea with their leader. They share their idea with their leader and the loop is never closed. Even if that idea does not align with the company's mission or goal for that quarter or year, say so.
Yeah.
If you don't close the loop, that person's going to be left wondering why, and they're going to be unhappy and their thoughts are going to run away with them. Irrational thoughts like, oh, that was a stupid idea. I'm so stupid. Why did I even open my big mouth? I should never open my big mouth again. I'm just going to keep quiet and do my job. That's what could happen.
Yeah.
You as a leader not closing the loop. This is how communication works.
Yeah.
So creating that environment where people feel like they're part of something and where they matter, and then good communication is what makes a happy team.
I mean, the last example you gave on closing the loop is so good because I think it happens a lot. You let the people wondering what's going on and make their own assumption. Just because you sometimes don't want to appear weak or disappointed, you don't realize that you are actually giving a worse image of yourself by not saying the
Correct.
truth. The things I recommend some of my clients to do is what I call stop, start, continue. You give 3 charts to your team for them to write down what they would like to stop, what they would like to start, and what they would like to continue. When I recommend the businesses I train or the leaders I coach to do that, sometimes I hear, why would I do this if it's then to them sharing ideas that we can't commit to, we can't do, we can't change. The thing I tell them is actually it gives you an opportunity to have a discussion with them about why you cannot do it. So then you don't leave them wondering, create wrong expectations, create frustrations on something that the reason why it's not done is just because this or that, but they just don't know about it and they deserve to know. How many times when we were employees, we were like, oh, they're not making the effort to do this, to do that. And we just make that assumption that they don't care. But probably the reason why they're not doing it is because they can't. So there are specific reasons behind it, but you don't want your team to have a wrong idea about that. You want them to know why you cannot do it. That courageous conversation with them is so important. The same when it comes to expectations management with customers. One of the type of questions I recommend the audience I train to ask their clients is what I call lock-on question. It's a very simple type of question. It's a yes or no question where, depending on the answer, you will have to justify why you're giving that answer. For example, are you happy with everything provided so far? Yes, you don't have to justify. No, you may want to dig in why the client is saying no. So the client will have to justify himself or herself. Actually, you're giving yourself an opportunity to explain how things work. So they don't have a frustration on something they shouldn't be frustrated about. That's what expectations management is about. So maybe they're wrong about something, but the question is, what is our responsibility in them being wrong? If you explain how things work, this is how they will understand and therefore not be frustrated about it. Again, it's about giving yourself the opportunity to do so. That's so important both with your team and with your clients to be able to create those opportunities where they express themselves on things they're frustrated about, they're unhappy about. They don't understand why it's done or not done this way. So you can justify yourself, explain, so then they understand it and leave that frustration, that unhappiness, that question mark on the side. Did you wanted to add anything else on that?
No, I agree. Yeah, I think it opens discussions. Even if the things that they would like to start doing, your staff members or your team members, is outrageous and can't happen, it needs to start a conversation and you can explain the reasons why. It's very important. It shows that you're listening. Those stop-start continues are very important because they show that you care and you're listening and you want to know what's going on. And yeah, people are encouraged to be as open and honest as possible in those situations.
Yeah. Clayton, let me ask you, from your own experience, what is the number one mistake managers are making when leading a team and how to overcome it? Feel free to give more than one.
I think I'm just going to go back onto the communication. That's the one mistake I see is leaders keeping it in. As leaders, we naturally want to feel like we should know everything. But a leader's job is not to know everything, not to have every answer. A leader's job is to create the environment for people to keep asking questions so that we can become better and improve.
Yep.
Communication, I think, is a big one. I see it so often with the leaders that I speak to, the fact that they want to be perfect. And because of that, they don't take on challenges because someone might see that they don't know what they're doing. They're scared that people find out that maybe they're not as good as everyone thinks they are, or that they don't have all the answers. So that need to be perfect is a real thing that I see often. Another one is the trust and assuming positive intent in people. Lots of times as leaders, it's very easy for us to jump to negative conclusions about people's motivations. We just naturally think, oh, I know what they're up to. They're against us or they're not really sick. People can see that. People can feel it. So there's a big trust barrier there. If you want to build trust in people, you need to respect them for their background, no matter their character, their position in business, their experience. You need to respect all those kinds of things. You want to show your intentions through your behaviors. People can see and smell your intentions a mile away. They can see if you're here for your own glory, to step on everyone's heads to get to the top. Or they can see if you're here to galvanize a group of individuals for the benefit of the group and really uplift those people around you. There's this quote from Kevin Murray, a leadership guru. He says, great leaders have the ability to inspire other people to do great things themselves. Another one, he says, as a leader, you can only get things done through others. So the sooner you include them in your culture, your way of doing things, the more likely you are to have success. And those are the mistakes. Communication, assuming negative intent about other people. If you don't trust people, you're not going to give them work to do. You're not going to delegate, which means as a leader, you're stacking up your own work. You're not challenging the norm. You're not looking at ways of improving processes because you are absolutely getting stuck in the day-to-day. And you don't allow yourself the time to strategize or to think of what is our goal for 2025 and how do we work backwards from that goal to achieve it. So, yeah, those are the big ones.
You know, Clayton, one of the things I enjoy the most in our conversations is the shining similarities between leadership and customer service. Because at the end of the day, leadership is people dealing with people, and customer service is people dealing with people. I am always amazed by the similarities because communication, understanding the customer's perspective rather than only seeing your side and making assumptions on what the client thinks, feels, and reacts, generating trust are key focuses when it comes to customer service. Everything is done through communication, expectations management, showing care, but you can only set expectations correctly, communicate effectively if you understand your customer's perspective rather than seeing only your own side of the equation. Everything in customer service is about trust. You can only apply all this if you gain their trust first. So almost everything you will be doing through that communication, expectations management, and understanding the customer's perspective is almost to achieve that ultimate goal, which is trust. And I'm amazed to see that it's very similar when it comes to leadership, but not surprised because, like I've said, it's people dealing with people. I think the people to people relationship, whatever type of relationship it is, whether between a leader or a team member, whether between a team member and another team member, between a human being and another human being, it's all about those three focuses: communication, trust, and understanding the other person's perspective. Even if you go to a relationship coach or a counselor, if you have difficulties in your own relationship, they will probably say those three things amongst others. So yeah, I'm really happy you've highlighted those three. I have another question for you. In terms of long-term impact when it comes to customer service or leadership, getting things done well, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, can be hard, but not as hard as getting consistent in the long term. So if we talk about long-term impact, what is making that impact if you really want to elevate or improve the performance of your customer service team?
Align everyone to the goals and make sure they understand their very important parts in the goal. And then you meet regularly, you work on development, you share ideas. I'll give you my example, right? In 2007, I became a leader for the first time. And I was quite fortunate because I was elevated quite quickly. I was only on the phones as an agent for just under 2 years and I gained to leadership. I didn't enjoy it because I was trying to be someone that I was not. Then I met my mentor. She was a lady who flew in to our office. And I remember the first time we met, I thought I was in trouble because there wasn't those kinds of meetings that often. And I thought, she's meeting with me first. The first thing she's doing is meeting with me. That's strange, but let's see what happens. I just remember we spoke nothing about work. She was just interested in me, my journey, my story, right? I was young. I was 27. I remember her having a chat with me and me walking around there, really intrigued by this person and drawn to her. She listened to me, made me feel like I was the only person on the planet when I was talking. She was genuinely curious and interested in me. And I was like, wow. The next day I went back and she wanted to talk about the plan and how we were going to turn around this very disengaged team. What surprised me was there was no plan. She didn't have a plan. She asked me for the plan. And she listened to my ideas and corrected them where I was being wrong. But I remember feeling very valued and very responsible for this change we were going to introduce into the contact center. And it wasn't long after that, maybe a month or a month and a half later, I realized that I was working very hard, the hardest I've ever worked. Why am I working this hard? It was because someone believed in me and I didn't want to let them down. They trusted me, gave me all this autonomy, helped me where I was going wrong, talked about the future, made me feel safe. For that reason, I was working really hard to prove a point. You are right in believing in me. I'm going to show you that all your belief in me is warranted. So I worked really hard. But that's not all they got. What they got from the call center was revenue. We broke revenue records. Productivity was through the roof. We climbed over 20% on a Great Places to Work engagement survey in 12 months. So revenue, productivity, engagement, and retention. When I left that business 12 years later, everybody was still there. No one left because we created this environment where people feel like they are part of something. Just like making people feel valued, making people feel like their contributions matter to the business. They will create an environment where people give long-term great service because it matters to everybody. I remember us creating a purpose behind selling holidays. And the contact center agents, we used to tell them about their purpose in a collaborative way, ask them what do they think their purpose is. We spoke about sending people on great holidays. As an agent, we play massive roles in the Instagram photos the customer will take, the restaurants they'll eat at during their holidays. It's a special time for everybody to go on holiday. Some people have one holiday every 2 or 3 years. So we played a massive role in that holiday, and that was our purpose. I remember one agent asked the customer, what would you like to smell on holiday? After the call, I said to her, why did you ask that? She said, I want to make sure they have a great time. As a leader, you've hit upper echelons of leadership. The boat is now riding itself. You must make sure you support it. And if you can create that environment, your customer service will be long-term. I remember being blown away recently by a waiter in a restaurant where she asked us, is there a special occasion today? And we said, yeah, we're seeing a couple of friends we haven't seen for a long time. She said, would you like a selfie? I can take a photo for you. And we're like, of course. We didn't expect it. She just took our phones and took some photos of us. And then she gave us something for the occasion. She did not have to do that. But she did that. Why? Because she knows that if she gives great customer service, we will come back. If we come back, she'll get more tips. More people will come. More people will give tips. The restaurant will flourish. So simple.
Very insightful what you've been sharing just now, Clayton. The main reason why, through the little things, you can really influence and inspire either the people you lead or the people you provide a service to, is by making that positive impact on their emotional perception. The minute you make that positive impact on the emotions of the individual you are leading or providing service to, they will be going above and beyond for you, either as a team member, like you said, through the years, giving their 100% because they feel empowered, they feel acknowledged, they feel appreciated, or as a customer to give their loyalty, recommend their friends and relatives, give an amazing review because they feel cared for, they feel appreciated, they feel acknowledged. And you know what really struck me when it comes to making that positive impact on that emotional perception is that, again, it's always through the little things. It doesn't matter if it's a little thing or a big thing. What matters is what impact it has on the emotional perception. That little gesture, that little extra mile, that little thing that's being said, how much the person is receiving it in terms of feeling appreciated, feeling cared for, feeling empowered. And I think that is what makes a difference in the long term, both in leadership and customer service, which is an amazing similarity. Would you like to add anything on that, Clayton, before I conclude this amazing discussion?
No, I think hit the nail on the head. It's the little things, the basics. If you do the basics right and lay the proper foundation, people will want to do things for not just you as the leader, but for the business. If you lay the foundations in that relationship and you touch those emotional heartstrings, because if people feel like they are empowered and included, you will get the best out of them.
That's so true. And that is a very good conclusion. Thank you very much for sharing your insights today. The conclusion I will give myself is very simple. Successful customer service also starts through your leaders and through a team successfully led, inspired, trained, monitored, and influenced. It starts with the people because the leaders will guarantee that consistency, and customer service is all about consistency. Before I finish with this podcast, would you like to share anything else, Clayton, about that topic, about yourself? The floor is yours.
No, I think if I can leave one parting piece of advice for many leaders out there is absolutely never be afraid to ask for help. As Tina Turner famously sang, we don't need another hero, right? Don't be a hero. Ask for help as leaders. So many people stand in our own way because we've created this thing that a leader should be. A leader needs to create the environment where people keep asking the right questions.
I think the reason why sometimes leaders don't do that is because they're afraid to show weaknesses.
Correct.
Is it not a strength to be honest about your own weaknesses in front of your team? You will actually generate more appreciation and respect. I love that you took that last statement as a conclusion. Thank you so much, Clayton. It's an understatement to say it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you to everyone who listened, will be listening to that podcast. For the Spotify podcast, if you could follow my page, leave me a 5-star rating if you found that episode or any other episodes insightful. You can also turn the episode's notification for my channel by clicking the bell. If you are listening to that podcast on YouTube, feel free to give me a thumbs up, a little comment if you want to, and of course, subscribe to my channel. Clayton, I'm going back to you. Is there any better way to reach out to you? Anything specific you're looking for? The floor is yours.
No, I'm all good. Thank you very much, Pierre. I really appreciate the time you've given me and for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm sure it's going to be a massive success.
Thank you, Clayton. It was a real pleasure. I really enjoyed it, and it wasn't out of nowhere that I chose you as my first guest for that podcast. I couldn't think of anyone else, not only because you are a very good friend, but also because everything you say resonates so much with me. I could continue that conversation for days, but at some point we will have naturally to talk about rugby, and that's where I love the fact that you were laughing even before I said the word rugby, because you knew if we start to talk about rugby, it may be a little bit more fiery. If you would like to reach out, feel free to visit my website or my LinkedIn profile. If you'd like to know more about my training solutions, you can also book my free discovery call on both links. If you'd like to get to know more about how I can both recruit and train at the same time, you can book your free recruitment consultations on both links. Thank you again for coming today, Clayton. It's been a real pleasure. Looking forward to the next month episode that will also be a very interesting topic. Clayton, wishing you all the best, and it was a pleasure again.
Thanks, Pierre.
See you all soon.